Play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ATP Weekly, and this is the Montreal edition. And it's very fitting that Andre is the one who is joining me as co-host today for this show because Andre, this is your hometown.
Yeah. Hey man, how's everybody doing? So it's here. I unfortunately, funny enough, I have a story about it that when I had tickets for 2 days for Montreal, Thursday evening and Friday. Those are the 2 days that play got canceled. So I went to the site twice, and I saw no tennis at all. Not a single point was played. I watched a few of Fritz's practice shots and the warm up between Kokinakis and Hurkacz, but that was it. So it was probably my unluckiest tennis moment ever in my life.
Yeah, I mean the schedule was just very, very whack for this tournament because of the rain on Thursday and Friday, and so because they were literally playing second round on Saturday, which I've never seen before. And at some point, there was even talk of people playing 3 matches a day. But anyway, somehow they got through it. And Alexei Popyrin is the champion. Exactly the person that everybody would have predicted in their brackets to win this tournament.
Yeah, and we're just having a little chat like in the off camera before the show, and it's not like the draw was that depleted. We had I think Taylor Fritz was in it. Yeah, Taylor Fritz was in it. I just mentioned that he was in Montreal. We had obviously Yannick Sinner, defending champion. Stefanos Tsitsipas was there, finalist in 2019, I believe.
We had Medvedev as well, who also lost early, and a lot of people.
Casper Ruud was also in the draw. Casper Ruud reached the semis 2 years ago, I think. So it was an interesting draw, but of course also Zverev, which the semifinals lost to Korda. But I think that you said it correctly, like because of the scheduling after the Olympics, they chose to start it on a Tuesday and end it on a Monday to give some players who are coming over from Paris a little bit of time to rest, a little bit of room to decide to come to Montreal. So that they could get an up on ticket sales and everything. Obviously, that makes sense. But I don't think it helped all that much at the end of the day. And it's been a while since Montreal has kind of like seen a little bit of stories happening in Canada, really. So yeah, I got Popyrin making his run into the final and the title.
That was one of the more incredible Masters 1000 runs for sure, because he beat 5 top 20 players. He did it on his 25th birthday as well. And also there were some signs earlier in the year, some matches that he played where he was really starting to put things together. I mean, we know he has a big serve, a big forehand, kind of a backhand that he has to protect a little bit. He has a very good slice. He's very good at running around it. He's also pretty quick for a guy his stature. I actually didn't quite realize how quick he was until this week. I'd seen him obviously like win Umag last year, beat Wawrinka. I've seen both the slam matches that he played against Djokovic in the third round of Australia, second round of Australia, third round of Wimbledon. And both those matches, I think he competed really, really well in. And so I think, what stood out was just how well he competed again throughout this whole week, and the way he was able to save match points against Dimitrov. Yeah, I put up this tweet yesterday, just kind of going through all the moments that he was on the brink this week against Dimitrov and against Hurkacz, especially on Mario and I, we called that match along with Zverev and Korda on Saturday. So we were doing kind of a stream of both matches, and we were, really like Hurkacz was kind of on his third leg, like playing all those 3-setters coming back from the meniscus injury, and he had so many chances to win, but Popyrin every single time would just come up with a really big serve, really big forehand, like just kind of understood the moment really well and had a lot of clarity on a lot of these points. And even against Korda, he was down in the first set. Korda served for it, so a lot of kind of what if moments from this tournament as well. But a pretty cool story at the end to see someone who's like in the middle of their career, like outside the top 60, and is now going to be like 23 in the world, and first Aussie to win a title at Masters level in like over 21 years. The last was like Leighton Hewitt before Alcaraz and Runa were born. So that was in 2003 Indian Wells. So it's I felt like he was on the verge of a breakthrough. I didn't quite expect a Masters 1000 title. Of course, I'd be lying if I said I did. But yeah, to see it all come together this week, I don't know what it really means, like, going forward, whether we really see him as, like, sort of a US Open contender now. I don't really think so, but I think, it's one really awesome week, and I think I can see him kind of being in the 10 to 20 range for some time
Mm-hmm.
after this, because I feel like he does have a lot of serious weapons with the serve and the forehand and the backhand. He's got a good slice. I like how quick he is to run around it as well, and yeah, and I already talked about his athleticism. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, pretty pretty deserving run at the end.
Yeah, I watched some of the highlights as well, like when he took out Hurkacz, and obviously the match they played against Rublev, who seemed to be struggling a bit with like a stomach issue, I believe, in that
Yeah.
final. But it's I think Popyrin just was in the zone. I feel like he was just kind of playing like it's one of those weeks I felt like when I watched some of his because we know that he's an aggressive player. He likes to hit his forehand big, and he likes to serve big and do things, very aggressively. But it's not always that you get a game plan like this that works from A to Z, like for the entirety of a match. Um, I feel like against Rublev, that's probably one of the best players to peak like this, because Rublev is not necessarily a plan that is a player that is known for his plan B.
Yeah.
He definitely pushed him in the second set. I think if Popyrin had a longer dip, I think Rublev could have taken that set. He was really trying to like amp up like his aggression and just kind of being a little bit more onto the baseline and hitting it, because defensively, I don't think Rublev was really able to find the tools to like counterattack. But it's just one of those days. I feel like Popyrin was just hitting all of the lines, all of the shots, all the forehands were going in. Everything was just working in his favor. Definitely a good week for him, but I feel like we need to see how he handles the rest of the season, how he comes out like next year. Um, how much of this momentum or how much of this discipline and this level he can maintain for an entire season, really. Like we're gonna see where his ranking is going to be next year when he has to defend this title. So
Yeah. I think Rublev in the final had done well up until that point to kind of control his emotions, which is something he had been struggling with this whole year. Obviously, with the Dubai incident, but also the French Open, like some really big outbursts, and just kind of
mm-hmm.
managing that part of his game, because we did kind of see like the dark sides this year, and he did put out a post recently that was talking about him going through some depression and just kind of internally struggling. I think at least the good thing for him is that skipping the Olympics seems like it kind of paid off in the short term in terms of results in DC, and then now here getting to the final. Of course, he also beat Sinner along the way, who we'll talk about later. But in the final itself, I mean, Andre had a very low first serve percentage, 44%, and that just wasn't going to be enough, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
like every time he was having to hit second serves, he was punished every time he wasn't getting it to Popyrin's backhand. And Popyrin was finding those runaround forehands, especially on the ad side, and just clobbering forehands, like return winners, or just setting up some really nice offense, like on the third or fourth shot. And so I felt like Rublev was always kind of playing on the back foot, and he, like, a lot of the games that he got broken, he honestly threw in some pretty shocking service games. Like the first set, he hit two double faults like right away, and like another easy +1, and then like the second break as well, he hit a double fault on break point. There were a couple of other like really short second serves. It just wasn't gonna be enough for him to come back. Like, he did put up a pretty decent fight in the second set. He did get one of the breaks back, but then immediately at 3-all, he throws in
Mm-hmm.
another pretty bad service game. And I just felt like the how good Popyrin was playing, he was gonna allow a much higher standard for Rublev on his serve, and I didn't feel like he had that part of his game working, because I feel like once they got into longer rallies, Phil Gross put up the stats for the rally length, so it was interesting to kind of look at like 9+ shots. You saw Rublev was actually like winning like 14-8, which is like not a whole lot of points, because like Popyrin was dominating the 0-4 shot rally length a lot. So, but I did feel like once Rublev was able to get it to neutral, like he was sometimes able to kind of expose Popyrin's backhand, or sometimes like able
Mm-hmm.
to impose himself. But I also think, like you were saying about the plan B, I felt like Popyrin is another guy who likes to drop back and defend. And what Rublev was doing is he was hitting straight line pace to him, and was just hitting it like really, really hard and kind of to big targets, which is like safe against most players. But with Popyrin being as quick as he actually was,
Yeah.
and how well like he was also using his own variety, I felt like Rublev needed to open up the court a bit more with some angles,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
play a bit like he played very linear, and that's kind of
Yeah.
his go-to play anyway. But like I just think a player like this who's red hot is able to expose that many times. So
yeah, I agree. I think that one of the things that Rublev was doing well was using his forehand out, his inside out forehand to bring out like Popyrin's like really deep in the court, like putting some backhands in. And I think that Rublev just kind of needs to go for a few more lines in those shots like that. I feel like he kind of opened up the door a little to Popyrin to Popyrin to get into those rallies and unleash his forehand. But yeah, like the one that was really like going for more risky shots was Popyrin, and he showed. But I think that you put up some like an interesting narrative as well, because it was still the final, and Rublev made it there. He had to beat Sinner on route. Sinner was suffering with a hip injury that seemed to be bothering him quite a bit. Lost the final set 6-2 after winning lost the third set 6-2 after losing the second, winning the second at 6-1. But he still got the win. I think the Sinner was not really necessarily like slowing down. He felt like he was like really trying to win. So it could have still been a loss to Sinner, which could have been even worse. Like if losing to a very heavily injured Sinner, I think it could have been a pretty bad loss for Rublev, and I feel like he kind of showed up for that one and won it. But yeah, like, what do you think of I guess Sinner's tournament in general? Like, what do you make of it? He's been injured for a while now.
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
He sort of didn't look right at times in that match against Medvedev at Wimbledon. And then he had tonsillitis. So then he skips the Olympics. And I wonder if I think he just hit a wall after playing 2 matches. And once he got to the 5th set of this match, like the 3rd set, he was pulling up with his knee. It seemed to be bothering him. And also his hip as well, which is kind of concerning because he had that issue coming into the French Open. So that's kind of a bit worrying. I think he's just needed the matches. So he came this week. He beat Tabilo. He beat someone else before that in the first round, I think Chorich. So he got a couple of wins under his belt. He won the second set in a very dominant fashion, and you would think at that point he had all the momentum, and he might just find a way, because like Sinner is like has had a pretty good handle on this matchup in general against Rublev. Like he's never lost a completed match to him in like 5 meetings. So I felt like he probably was gonna win the 3rd, but then he had that physical issue. He just sort of hit the wall. He was clutching at it the whole time, and then he threw in one pretty bad service game. Rublev, to his credit, he saved like 4 or 5 break points with some good play in the first game. And I think if he had lost his serve in that game, maybe we wouldn't have seen Sinner's injury until a bit later, and maybe he would have actually been able to run out the match. So credit Rublev for kind of hanging on and winning that first game when he was under pressure on his serve. So that was I think Rublev really needed a win like that, especially after the year that he's had, because he had the one great run in Madrid. Of course, Carlos a bit hurt in the quarterfinals, but nonetheless he won that whole title. Very weird tournament, of course, Madrid, with all the retirements and all the walkovers for on the other draw. But he managed to do that, also sick as a dog, coming off of tonsillitis, and perhaps that allowed him to not show a lot of the mental frustrations because he was so busy dealing with so many problems that week and sickness, that he actually won that title just by the mental part of it not being a factor. And then he sort of goes on a rut since then, and then now has this. So it's been a weird year, but somehow he's still like in the hunt for the ATP finals, because of course 1,000 points here, 600 here, and then he won Hong Kong at the start of the year, also made another Grand Slam quarterfinal at the Australian Open. So he's still, besides the final where he didn't play his best, I think he will still look at this as a good week overall.
Yeah, I mean, when you reach a final, even when Felix reached the final in Madrid, where he didn't play like 3 matches, got 1 walkover and 2 retirements, like basically early on, he still would have seen that as a good week. Of course, he almost won the title even. But same for Rublev. It's obviously disappointing to lose in the final. Just like we saw in the Olympic Games, like it's not fun to win a silver medal. It's not fun to lose a final, but in the end, like you gotta see for what it is, which is still a pretty great result. So I think you should be happy about it.
Oh yeah, this is true. Whoever tweeted this, Montreal is won by someone who didn't skip the Olympics, and also same with Toronto with Pegula on the other side. So
and Pegula, I think Pegula did Pegula get pretty pretty far in the doubles. I can't remember exactly what happened in that one.
Yeah, they lost a little bit early, like fourth round or quarters. In the doubles. So she didn't actually go that deep. She lost to Svitolina, I remember, the singles. But still, I mean, she was there for a few days. Someone's asking about Popyrin. Oh yeah, actually, so Popyrin plays Monfils, and the winner of that plays Carlos in Cincinnati. I saw that yesterday. I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty tough turnaround coming after Canada. Like a lot of the previous Canada champions, most recently, they haven't actually done that well in Cincinnati. Like the finalists, like Hurkacz, I remember when he got to the final, he lost to Isner the week after, and like Carreño Busta lost early since he, last year, I think Sinner lost to Lajovic. I was there last year, and that's like the only one loss that Sinner's had to someone like that you wouldn't expect, So I think the turnaround is actually pretty hard because it's back-to-back weeks and like it's pretty quick. And the conditions are totally different. I think different balls as well. And Cincinnati plays a lot faster. It's one of the faster hard courts for sure. So I don't know. I mean, can he beat Carlos? Maybe. I mean, Carlos will also have I'm saying maybe he'll have a chance because Carlos is also coming, from a surface change himself, and this will be his first match on the hard courts in a long time. But if I were to bet on it, probably not. I think maybe he can get by Monfils, maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, he just had the week of his life, so.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the winners in Canada have, aside from Sinner, who became number one, like all of them kind of had not necessarily the greatest of their years afterwards. We had Camila Giorgi, who ended up retiring on the British side. Medvedev, who hasn't really been past like the first two rounds in Canada ever since he won in 2021.
Yeah, he seems to be doing a lot better at Indian Wells in Miami now than he does these other hard
Carreño
courts.
Busta was the last men's champion in Montreal. Has been out of action for a while.
Maybe this is just gonna be the most unpredictable Masters, just because of. I mean, especially this year, it really makes sense because of the Olympics, plus also just the field, the weird weather as well. Like, there's a lot of factors I think that just make Canada like maybe the most unpredictable of them all.
Yeah, it's just a tough transition, getting right off Wimbledon, and a lot of tennis played in the summer, and just coming off to probably like the most demanding surface in terms of physicality, which is as in it's hard is just very hard on your body, no pun intended, but it's just it's just what it is. And when you kind of already sort of like injury prone and you come and do the surface switch, I think it's kind of easy to see how lately hasn't necessarily been the domination of like Roger Federer and Djokovic, Nadal, Murray that he was like way back in the other years, like in the past. So
another storyline from this tournament, of course, Korda continuing his winning ways from DC, getting to the semifinals, beating Zverev in the quarters in a really like tight match. It was the second match of the day, and he had beaten Fritz. Or excuse me, no, he wasn't his second match because he was supposed to play Ruud and then Ruud pulled out. Never mind. Korda played Zverev on the Saturday.
Semis,
semis? In the quarters.
No. Quarters, yeah.
Quarters, he beat Zverev, and that was a match that Mario and I called, and that was kind of his biggest win up until this point, because he won DC, but I don't think he beat a top 20 player to do that. So that was it was good for him to get like kind of a signature win, and he got that by beating Fritz first. That was his first top 20 win on hard courts this year, in a very weird match with the wind, and it wasn't high quality at all. I did see it. Fritz like had some chances to make it 1-all, but then Korda pulls it out in a tie break and really kind of outserved him, and really like it was one of those matches that made you think, okay, like if Korda can start winning matches like these, then maybe he has a possibility to break into the top 10 at some point, because we're seeing what he can do like when he's healthy, but he just hasn't been able to like sustain this kind of run of form. Like for him, 8 matches in a row is quite a big step. So when he actually beats Zverev, and the way that he was able to do it and come through all the tight moments in 3 sets, with Zverev, double faulting on some really big points, like giving away the break in the third set with 2 double faults in a row, and like dominating the second set, and like had chances in the first, was up a break. Like Korda actually won that ugly, and like not playing his best tennis against the top player. So that was that was good to see. And then he had chances if it was the first set against Popper, and maybe it's a different. Maybe we're talking about him as a Masters 1000 winner, right? So I think I think overall it's still a pretty good week that he was able to get to the semis, and now we actually have 4 Americans in the top 15, and it basically goes 12 through 15 in the rankings. You have, Fritz at 12, Paul at 13, Shelton at 14, and Corda at 15. So
still, top 15 is top 15. So,
right.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting though, like when you said,
like
sorry.
It's cool to see them all like close together, like this, like not that much, not that many points separating them in the rankings.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Like when you mentioned that, like you won it ugly against Zverev. I think if there is a player where I think it matters to win ugly against, I think that player can be Zverev, because he's notoriously good at not necessarily making players choke against him, if you will. He's kind of like one of those big serve pushers in the
so, big serving counter punches, right? Like
exactly, yeah. So if he was able to out defend, out counter punch Zverev, and make sure that balls got through him and hit winners, it says a lot. Like I think it's a good win, no matter how ugly it was. I think even ugly wins actually can be considered sometimes even better wins than the pretty ones. So that's one thing that I said like before. Like Popyrin was playing really good, really well. How will he do when he is not playing as well, when the shots are not coming in as much? Cincinnati kind of risks of being a bit similar to Montreal in terms of the weather. Maybe not as much rain, but because it was a specific meteorological condition with the hurricane transforming into a storm as he got here. But still, probably going to be a few windy days and whatnot. So obviously, if he can beat Monfils, he does have Alcaraz in the next round. So it's going to be a challenge no matter what. So
John is saying how he thought Corda was the stronger physically than Bar. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I watched most of that match, and I think he was actually like the better player the most time in that first set, like physically as well. But yeah, when it came down to it, I think on all of the break points, all the big points, Popyrin was impressively quite level-headed. Like there were some moments where he actually pulled back and like relied on his movement more than I was expecting him to. And it didn't feel like desperate. Like every time he was running around his backhand and hitting forehands from the outside, it didn't feel like he was like playing out of his skin, like going for low margin shots. So that was kind of impressive that he was that he found like this zone that a lot of athletes like struggle to find on the tennis court, which is like that mix between like being overly offensive and like at the same time like working the points. So he was able to like find a really good blend. And also what he did a lot this week is he would wind up with a really big forehand on the ad side, and then at the last minute like disguise a drop shot really well. And like he did that on his forehand many times. He would hit like a inside out drop shot, and then like against a player like Rublev who doesn't like to come forward, it's such a good play because you're making him like pulling him into a part of the court that he's not that comfortable in, and it makes it really hard for Rublev to finish points. So he did a really good job with that.
Rublev is competent. He's not incredible at the net, but I think he's better than like say Taylor Fritz at the net, and I think he should do it more. I think he came up to the net a couple of times against Sinner, against Rinaldi. So I feel like it's a play that he should definitely consider doing more off, even if just to throw off players like Medvedev used to do. Is not amazing, but he makes it work, and he just. And when the player is not expecting, it can happen. So I feel like it's definitely a plan that should enter his book.
Yeah, I like the play when players they go drop shot cross court, because sometimes I feel like you risk it being very readable, and if the player has really good anticipation, if you go down the line and you hit it to their stronger side, their forehand, even a player like Rublev who has a very strong continental grip on his forehand, and when he's running up, and if he just gets there at the last second, he can actually catch it and hurt you. But if you get it cross court and you get it to the backhand, now it's like now you're asking the player to have really good feel themselves and have really good like cover a longer diagonal as well, depending on where they are on the court. So that's why like Alcaraz is pretty special, because he can kind of hit all the drop shots, and it's like I've never seen a player like kind of do that on really big points at a really high success rate. But there's a lot of other players that are using it in their games pretty effectively, and it's making them more well-rounded and complete. So that's been something that's been fun to like watch this decade. Is just like the reintroduction of a lot of players using drop shots.
Yeah. Yeah. Another story I find that this week was really interesting to see was Kei Nishikori getting to the quarterfinals. I think
Amazing,
he played
right?
really well again. Yeah, he's just kind of. It's good that he didn't suffer any injury either. So like that's pretty good that he just went out like just playing tennis. Arnaldi was just really younger and faster. You could see Nishikori kind of like struggling to keep up from the back of the court, where he's like the strongest. That's the strongest part of his game, really, the baseline. But he tried a lot of serve and volley. He tried to finish points really early. Maybe trying to like preserve whatever is left of his knees. Yeah, I feel like that match was played like 5 years ago. Nishikori definitely would have won that, and he would have had a really, really great shot at his first Masters 1000 final. But
it was literally his
unfortunately,
first quarterfinal at a Masters in over 5 years. It's crazy. It's been that long, but like Nishikori, once again, kind of reminded us that when he's healthy, he's still one of the best baseliners when it comes to like his timing, both ground strokes, like the way he can change directions. Like he doesn't have a big serve, of course, he never did. And he's not the biggest guy, but like his timing, his redirection, his purity on the backhand as well. Like I remember growing up as a junior and wanting to hit my backhand sometimes like Kei. Like I would just imagine Kei Nishikori when I was hitting my backhand sometimes. Other times, sometimes I was successful, sometimes not so much. But I tried to like kind of emulate the flat ball strike and like the way he would like take his racket back and like I don't know, just like redirect. But like he looked fairly healthy this week. I just hope, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because every time he gets a good run like this, it sadly like doesn't last that long, and then he ends up kind of regressing back. So I really hope he's able to sustain this a bit longer. Like he beat Tsitsipas in the second match. But before that, he was also down a set in a break against Mickelson. And like who we were talking about last week, was like pretty crafty, who's going to throw a lot of junk at you, who's like a big server as well, defends pretty well. Like, so that was already a really, really good win. Once he won that, he was kind of playing with a lot more freedom against Steph, and Steph kind of had his own issues in that match. And now he's, no longer with his dad as his coach. But that's a whole separate thing. Like Nishikori, then to continue that, he beat Borges. Arnaldi got to the semis this week. That guy is really fast. I mean, he covers the court like a gazelle. He is just so quick. And he just also has a lot of talent. This is kind of like Flavio Cobolli and Arnaldi are just making their mark right now at the same time. And
Flavio Cobolli, who by the way just beat Tommy Paul today in Cincinnati, I think. So it was a big win. He was down a match point actually on that match, and saved the match point.
No, I wasn't too surprised, because I watched him play the whole time in DC, and he has a really, really versatile forehand.
He was the finalist, right?
Yeah, he lost to Korda in 3 in the final. But he beat Ben Shelton along the way. He picked up some memorable wins, and he's kind of been making noise. Like, played a very underwhelming match against Nadal in Barcelona, but ever since that match, where I think he kind of felt a little bit of nerves, like he's been really, really solid. So I don't know. He's like somebody that it wouldn't shock me if he like broke in the top 10 at some point in his career, because I feel like he's so versatile. He's so quick. He has such a good forehand. He's doesn't really have a major weakness as far as I can see with the eye test.
He also is very energetic. I like when players have a clear personality on court. They don't necessarily need to be always yelling after every single point, but like whenever if they know who they are and they know how to behave on a court, I think it matters so much. Like if they have like a personality like Alcaraz, who's like extremely energetic and like always like making it a show and just like involve, like, just trying to involve the crowd, or if like a Yannick Sinner who just kind of tries to like stay in his own world and making sure that he controls the point like in a very like efficient manner. But like as long as they know who they are, I feel like it matters so much in their minds to be able to play their best tennis, find a place where they're comfortable at. And Cobolli kind of looks like he's that kind of more on the Alcaraz style. Like he just really likes to scream loud when he wins a point. It needs that energy to to go for it. Like on the match point he saved, he hit a backhand above the shoulder down the line, and he just he could have landed anywhere, and he was a winner. But just kind of shows the player that he is. I find, and that's kind of it's really good to see that.
Yeah, he definitely plays with a lot of emotion and heart, and he's got a lot of like moxie. So it's really it's a positive for sure. He's very expressive. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's a question about Borges and Souza. I feel like they're a little bit different in terms of their play styles. I mean, Souza was very much kind of a grinder, and he won a lot of like clay court titles in South America, and also like in the European season, he was like kind of a player who was always like between 30 and 70 in the world, like just kind of making a very steady living doing that. And like he got a few big wins, but kind of he was more like a litmus test player. Whereas Borges, I think, probably has the higher upside, and like because he's had a breakthrough a little bit later, I think maybe he can actually achieve a little bit more than Souza, but I don't know. It depends. Like he also came from college tennis, and he's won some big challenger titles already, and he's already won the title on clay, beating Nadal in the summer.
Yeah, I think Borges has just remember his match that he's played against Medvedev in Australia earlier this year.
Right, he also beat Dimitrov in the third round there.
Yeah, and I think that's he has big weapons, and he's really good at the net as well. And I feel like those tools are really important. Whereas like if you have like players that are more like grinders, and they can be good and they can maximize that, like Souza did. But I think it's an aggressive game. I feel like it's just a little bit more transferable to other surfaces. He may be able to excel more on faster hard and maybe grass, even if he pulls in the reps and just kind of tries to get some wins on there. But yeah, so I feel like Borges just has a little bit more of like a higher ceiling, if you will.
Oh yeah. But he's pretty aggressive, and he likes to come forward and big game. So I think bigger upside. But what else, like kind of from Montreal this week? We already talked about Arnaldi.
Is it time we talk about a roof?
Oh, a roof? Yeah. Like so many 1000s though, where I feel like it's kind of becoming a thing, like in Rome as well, and also like Miami. I don't know. Somehow we have the worst. Like we have the tournament scheduled in like the worst months for rain in like most places, and somehow we end up making it work. Like it just baffles me.
Yeah,
like how we're able to get these tournaments done, with that kind of weather.
It's pretty insane. It's just a matter of like whatever 15 minutes we get of tennis, they're out there playing. If they play like 5 points and then there's like a 30-minute rain delay, they go back, play like 2. As long as they can get like inching closer to finishing matches, they're going to do that. It's just been a bit. I mean, I guess it kind of speaks a little bit louder to me because I've been. I was working at Tennis Canada for like the past 3 years, and that's my first tournament that I am not there since 2021. And it's just every year, especially like maybe last year was atrocious. It was really hard to finish that tournament, and the Pegula beat Samsonova, who had absolutely nothing left in the tank.
I remember that,
and then this year we had like Sinner playing 2 matches. A couple of players played 2 matches in the same day on Saturday, even though we could finish the tournament on a Monday. So I don't know. I feel like it's just the type of climate, man. Like it was announcing like perfect weather before the storm came, but it's just so rough to. It just maybe the 12-day Masters is going to allow them like a little bit more room for wiggle room for them for those matches, but I don't know. Also, interestingly enough, because Montreal and Toronto are not the same venue, I wonder how they're gonna like schedule matches. Are there gonna be last matches per day, or it's just interesting how's it gonna roll?
Yeah, I don't know. Where there's gonna be some where it's only gonna be one tour has a 2-week Masters, like Shanghai. So it'll probably be like something like that. But it's going to be very weird next year because they won't really even finish on weekends. It'll be like,
on
like
Wednesday, or I think
or Wednesday. It'll just be very weird because obviously Atlanta is not on the calendar. Other tournaments are suffering because like the clay swing. I think after Wimbledon.
I think Newport is also out, right? It's like that was last year.
Newport the week after Wimbledon is not there anymore. Exactly, and Atlanta I think is not there anymore, which is the week after. So that's the direction where the tours are going. Hopefully, that means if it does rain, that they'll won't have that big of an issue. I'm hoping, but yeah, roofs. I think Rome already said they'll get a roof by 2026.
Yeah,
I think the roof is just like it would be nice to have, but it's also just really costly probably, and it probably need like permissions from the city, and it's probably like just if they were to put a plan in place, it probably wouldn't even be in effect until like another 3 or 4 or 5 years, I would imagine. Of course, these are outdoor tournaments, but the majors have them, so maybe someday the Masters will be big enough that they'll consider it.
Yeah. Also, I think that one of the biggest problems that Tennis Canada has right now in terms of like the building of a roof is that they're gonna have to pick a city to do it. I don't think they can build 2 roofs because it's 2 different projects. Yeah, it's not this. If you were the exact same stadium, maybe they could pull it off because it's the same project, the same architecture, but it's 2 different roofs, 2 different properties, 2 different governments that they have to deal with. So it might be a bit more complex a situation for Canada to make a roof. So they might have to like see which tournament has had more rain and more situations like this in the past, and just go for this one, and then maybe 10 years ahead in the future build another roof. But it's always a tough situation right there. But I think Montreal is a good place to start, to be fair. But
it seems like the last 2 years it's Montreal that was hit harder. So but hopefully Cincinnati will be a bit be a bit better on the weather side. There will probably still be humid, still be hot, still have a little bit of rain.
For sure.
I think hopefully it won't be like Montreal this week. Let's talk a little bit about that draw because I do feel like the top seeds are going to perform a bit better in Cincinnati, especially the ones because they have more time now coming after the Olympics, and some of them skipped Canada. Of course, we have Alcaraz back, which is a big thing, and then Sinner, we'll see how much healthier he is. He already was kind of putting his expectations really low for this tournament, saying he'd like to just get a couple of matches in. Of course, he would play Alcaraz in the final, but in terms of the draws, I mean, already the tournament is very well underway. The last couple of days, we already talked about Kabuli beating Paul, but today as well, there's some matches happening like right now that have already taken place. We had like Mickelson beating Griekspoor. So he'll actually play Sinner next. It seems like Griekspoor is always in Sinner's section. This time they're not going to be playing each other. I guess also at Wimbledon they were supposed to play in the 3rd round, but Kecmanovic beat Griekspoor. Griekspoor's season kind of since the French Open, since he blew that lead against Zverev in the 5th set, it's kind of gone backwards. But who else do we have? Like we already have Musetti and Jari playing. Oh, that's an interesting match. Seems like Jari is on break in the 1st set. But you also have Opelka back, so he's playing Shelton. There's like some really good first rounds, I feel like, in this tournament. And then after that, it's kind of like Sinner and Rublev were to meet again in the quarters if they get there. Like you have Dimitrov, you have Hurkacz, you have Alcaraz Medvedev, a potential semifinal. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the seeds lost, but I think some of them will hold up more than in Canada. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a more standard tournament, if you will. I feel like we're gonna have a couple upsets here and there. This section actually, when you mentioned the Musetti and Medvedev, that's a pretty packed little cluster over here. We had like Davidovich Fokina. I mean, he just lost to Tiafoe, but it could be like Musetti or Jari versus Tiafoe, which is kind of pretty big, and Lehechka Medvedev, and then the winner of that goes on to beat
Lehechka hasn't played since he injured himself against Medvedev, I think, or no, he beat Medvedev. Medvedev was hurt. Lehechka retired in the semis against Felix. That's what it was. Yeah,
exactly.
He hasn't played since, so it's been a long time for Lehechka.
Yeah, he got his first win against the tough player Mariana Navone from Argentina. he's a grinder.
Guy
So
who's
it's
played less than 10 matches on any surface apart from clay.
from
Like
clay.
he's like a really like extreme example of a specialist, because like he basically didn't play any hard courts or grass until this year, which is like super rare.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a very interesting popcorn match here. Struff versus Tsitsipas. Kind of not really sure like what to call on this one, but yeah, the draw I think is going to be interesting.
Tsitsipas got a really bad draw. I mean, Jari and then potentially who else? Like his draw is just awful. Like he plays maybe potentially Draper, that could be problematic.
Yeah.
Plus first tournament with a new coaching setup.
Yeah. I do feel like I want to see man, this draw is like packed. Just like watching Berrettini versus Rune first round as well. They could face you could have a Rune Alcaraz third round, or whoever is going to be on there is then maybe facing Ruud. I mean, it's a pretty interesting combination here. I feel like it's more on the balanced side. The draw feels like very, very, very balanced in general. So it could be a very interesting tournament in the end.
Two SoCal boys going at it, Fritz and Nakashima, for the third time. That's later today.
Yeah. But, John asks if Steph needs a coach. What do you think, Bunch?
Oh, I think he has a temporary coach this week, right?
Really? Who's that? Do you think he's gonna go back with his dad eventually?
Well, I think so. It's interesting. Like last year, like he was with Philippoussis for half of the year, and then he said, "Actually, I want my dad as the head coach," and Philippoussis was in the background. But then in August, he says that Philippoussis is now the main coach, and the father is still like with him. But now he doesn't. Now he's like saying he's no longer with his dad, and he put up a long statement about it. But his dad is still going to be traveling with him. So I'm not quite sure. Like it's going to be really hard for him to like stay out of the picture, just given everything we sort of know about him and their relationship. Like a new coach is gonna who comes in is gonna need to have like the flexibility and freedom and liberty to like make improvements, and like keep working on his game. And like I don't know, it's been kind of like they've had a lot of really fiery moments on court for like several years that are pretty well documented. So I kind of think, he does need some.
Oh snap! Your mic died, Vansh. Sorry. But yeah, I think in terms of Tsitsipas and his dad, I think he will either have to find a way to not have his dad in his coaching box. He's gonna have to find a way to maybe change his accreditation, his credentials, like when he gets in that tournament, so that when he gets there, he won't be able to like sit in as close to him in the box. Maybe he's gonna have to have another seat somewhere else, even though he's gonna be around him. But it's probably pretty tough. Like, where is he gonna sit? He's gonna be having full contact with him. Is he going to be trying to mess up with like whatever coach situation that Tsitsipas gets? And what is the next coach going to think about it? Is he going to have the patience to deal with the family situation? Which, by the way, I don't know personally, just kind of out of things that we see on TV.
Okay. So I did look this up on Twitter. His name is Dimitris Hadjinikolo. So he is the National Davis Cup. Oh, he's the Davis Cup team captain for Greece.
Oh, that's interesting. So they probably have a pretty good relationship.
It's a temporary solution, I think. But
so he probably works for the Greek Federation as well.
At least Stefanos knows and trusts, right? So I think.
Yeah. So it's probably a person that his dad also knows and trusts. So I think the trifecta relationship might probably be interesting and amicable. So I feel like it could be an interesting situation, but as the captain of a team, I don't think that can be a long-term solution.
Yeah, I think this is different from the other times that he's like last year when he split with his dad, because like this time he's like publicly actually like saying like my dad is no longer the coach, whereas last year it was more like okay, he's no longer going to be like the head coach, but he's still going to be with me. But it's still kind of true. So I feel like it is a big step, but it's still like one that still needs a lot more room for it to actually have legs, and like a permanent coach who can travel with him like full time. Like if you have that and you have continuity, I feel like that's the main thing, because you can't keep having like the back and forth of like, okay, dad is in, dad is out, dad is in, dad is out. Like that's just gonna keep him very stagnant where he is at for a long time. And then it's kind of, yeah. I also don't think a coach can just radically come in and just change his backhand. Like I've seen on Twitter,
for sure.
just saying like, oh, you need a coach who can teach him how to slice, who can teach him how to return. But honestly, like a lot of the mentality of coaches and a lot of the mentality of players who have gotten to the level of Steph, it's like keep focusing on your strengths and like try to make the weaknesses as little bit of weaknesses as possible. Like there are many times on the return of serve where I feel like Steph should just go back and return, because he just doesn't have a good block return, and it's like he likes to mix it up. But personally, I would just stand really far back on the second serve return and try to find forehands, try to protect the backhand as much as he can.
Yeah,
but I mean, like to some extent, it's always going to be a bit of a weaker side, and I don't think like he can radically like just change the technique now, and like, you know, he can make little improvements, but
I feel like he could doing something like expecting things like the big three did to their careers. It's monumental, right? So like a change of racket, even like the Roger Federer made, that was not something that players do, especially at 35 years old. So it's it's something that you get used to when you're like in your formative years. So
you have Andy Murray like trying to change his racket tension,
to Yonex,
3 weeks before he retires, or 3 months before he retires, which is crazy. Always trying to find that extra little bit of an edge.
Yeah. So I do feel like Tsitsipas could find a mentality of like, let's see if we can improve a bit. But I feel like before that, I think he needs to do what you said. He needs to protect his weaknesses, and he needs to do something about holding that serve. He has a big serve, big
also
forehand.
His strengths have not been working that well, right? Like
exactly. He needs
really
to.
Like
he needs to get back to that forehand serve combo that he has, and it works so well. He's good at the net. He needs to make his strengths work before he works on his weaknesses. So that's I feel like,
and also like the mentality. You know, I feel like he's kind of coming into a lot of these matches with a lot of scar tissue now when he plays a lot of the top players. So he's kind of lacks that belief that he once had, and I think that's because he's not that comfortable in his strengths as he once was a year or so ago. It looked like he was very much in the mojo and everything during the clay swing, Monte Carlo, Barcelona, even Rome as well. He looked really good. Even Roland Garros, honestly, up until he played Alcaraz, he looked really good. It's just you know, the Alcaraz matchup is very brutal for him, of course, and then also he just, you know, once he got off the clay and then grass, it's kind of like he looks a little bit like he doesn't quite know. He's kind of going through the motions a bit right now, so he needs to kind of get his, like, you know what, together with his like his setup and then also his strengths again. But yeah, because otherwise he's gonna be like kind of a Rublev type where he's always just gonna be in the top 8. He's always gonna like put himself in the conversation.
Yeah.
But he needs to get back there first, because right now he's like not even there. So once he gets back there, then, you know, then the rest of the stuff, like he basically is looking for stability right now, I feel like.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Fully agree with you. I feel like that's when I remember when we were talking about his loss to Djokovic, where he should have won that second set. That's the type of thing that he needs to work on first. Like, how can I
and
make
keep
sure
putting
that the
yourself in those
opportunity,
positions. Like, you know, keep putting
exactly,
yourself in the positions like he was, like getting to the quarterfinals, semifinal. Try not to lose before that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think he definitely something that he needs to put his head in that type of game.
He should have. I mean, we said it last week that he definitely should have won that second set. But
yeah. Maybe he's not in that great of a place now, especially like with his dad leaving. That's probably some emotional something that's going on in there. Can't really focus, but like just hope for the best, because I do think that Tsitsipas is an exciting player to watch when he's at his best. I think he can produce really good, interesting stuff. So yeah,
I think like people have forgotten, but like 2019, 2020, like
exactly,
he was the guy, you know, like he was the guy first half of 2021, you know, at times last year, early part January mostly. But yeah, since then it's been tough. But you know, he's what, 26 now, and so he's still, it's not like he's running out of time. Like he still has time, but it's just, yeah, you know, with
he's now the very official now gen.
Yeah,
almost crossing into
not the new guy anymore. But
yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm younger than him by over 2 years. But yeah, I mean, do you have any like predictions or anything for Cincinnati? I honestly think the top guys are going to perform a bit better. I'm probably just a little bit down on Sinner maybe going all the way this week, just based on what he said last week, and also just like maybe, like he's gonna want to be in tip-top shape for the U.S. Open, and I don't know if he'll is quite like physically ready to peak here yet. He's never like done that well in Cincinnati, despite it being really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder.
You mean Sinner or?
Yeah, Sinner.
Yeah.
Carlos, I feel like actually has a pretty decent draw if he can.
Yeah.
Get by the
yeah, the goal is certainly to be fit for the US Open, but I don't know. I think when he says like I just want to win a couple as many matches as I can, I think that's the right approach. And when he hits the US Open again, I think that his goal should be to be fit enough so that he wants to win it. I think as a number one in the world, the winner of the Australian Open, he shouldn't set his bar so low as to seeing like reaching the second week or something like. He should aim to win it. That's what his goal should always be right now in his career.
Yeah, another player who I think in the bottom half can actually do really well this week is Felix. I believe he's done well at Cincinnati in the past. Even last year, he beat Berrettini. He won a couple of rounds. He beat Sinner here 2 years ago. I feel like big serve, big forehand, really fast conditions. Recently, like Felix has been doing a lot better on clay. But I do think like, if he gets that serve and forehand going, he could be dangerous this week. Also, Ruud is in that section, who I don't feel great about right now purely because of his health problems. Like, because he pulled out of doubles and he pulled out of the tournament last week. He seems to be fighting some kind of illness. So I think it might be a good chance for Felix this tournament. He plays Kovacevic, and then potentially Ruud if Ruud plays, and he actually has a good matchup now over Ruud. Like he's beaten him a couple of times. And then Tsitsipas, Draper in that section, Struff. I feel like he could be someone this week who could make a really deep run.
Yeah, I think it's a good draw. It's not the absolute best, but it's losing in Montreal is not necessarily new for Felix. Unfortunately, I think playing at home is always
maybe
very
the turnaround was too quick after the Olympics for him.
That too, yeah.
And he also played Kabuli in the first round, which is a really tough draw.
Yeah. So it's going to be something. I feel like I want to keep my hopes always in check a little, like when it comes to Canadians, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully he can become sort of like his old self, like very creative, very aggressive, very energetic, very willing to hit the spots and just hit big forehands.
2022 Felix back. That was
exactly
That was a good.
That was his best for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a good time as well, Andre, to recap Montreal with you. And, to talk about Cincinnati, I think we can leave it here because we've covered quite a bit. And if you have any other thoughts.
No, just it's kind of like recalibrating the minds for the end of the Olympics and just kind of go back to business as usual and just regular season of tennis now. So yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of which, we're at 9,645 subscribers, so we do want to get to 10,000 by the U.S. Open, or at least by the end of the month, which I think is our goal. So hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned. We also have WTA Weekly coming after this with Nick, and more watch-alongs, of course. And keep on talking tennis. And thanks for all the comments as well. And see you soon.
All right. See ya.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.